Glass is a hazardous material to work with, and it's especially hazardous to handle and to move around. It's heavy, it's awkward to pick up, and if it breaks, it's going to hurt you. This is, so to speak, the cutting edge of our industry. So, accidents are to be expected, right? The occasional cut, the odd scar here and there. Even, perhaps, the risk of losing an eye. They're all part of the job, right? Wrong. All accidents can be prevented, and most of them can be prevented very easily. A year ago, Ian Ratcliffe was injured when a piece of glass he was carrying slipped.
I just never thought about being badly hurt. Oh, I can take care of myself, you know what I mean? I've been cut before. Most people have in this job. I wasn't even doing anything stupid. You know what I mean? Just carrying a piece of 4mm. Just slipped. Hit my wrist. If only I'd had the wrist guards on. I knew straight away it were bad. Didn't hurt like. Not then. Just couldn't move my fingers. No, I can't work. Can't close my hand. It does hurt now. I'm on painkillers, see? I tried to keep off them because it's not good to be on them all the time, is it? Nights is the worst. Just aches. Like toothache. Can't wait for the morning to come sometimes. There's nothing to do.
Ian's accident is typical. He said, "I wasn't doing anything stupid." He was, you know. He was handling glass, and 4mm glass at that, without bothering to wear wrist protection and cut-resistant gloves. That's about as stupid as you can get. Never done it? So how can you prevent an accident happening to you? Well, there are 3 common types of injury in the glass industry: lacerations, strains, and eye injuries. And there are 3 things that you can do every day as part of your normal job to prevent them. You can do a risk assessment before you start. You can wear personal protective equipment. And you can learn a proper lifting technique. It's all in here. Guidance notes on the safe storage, handling, and transport of glass. What we're going to show you in this video applies equally to all sections of the glass industry, from glass manufacture through fabrication to installation on site.
Take a good look at this worker. He's doing a fairly routine job in a glass factory. He's selecting glass from stock, cutting it, disposing of the cullet, and picking up the cut pieces. Before you start a job like this, you need to do a risk assessment. That means that you ask yourself a whole series of questions to make sure that you understand what the hazards are and that you've done everything that's reasonably practical to remove, reduce, or control them.
So ask yourself questions like, what type of glass is it? Is it annealed, toughened, mirrored even? How thick is it? 4mm will be very liable to break. 6mm will be heavy to pick up, and so on. Is it within my capabilities to pick it up? Is it too big or too heavy for me to lift? How am I going to pick it up? We'll be looking more closely at this question of lifting technique in just a minute. Where am I going to take it? Are there any obstacles on the route? Are there any people or vehicles who need to be warned? How will I put it down? There needs to be a properly padded table if you're going to put it down flat, or you need to have blocks ready. What personal protective equipment do I need? Again, We'll be returning to this question in just a moment. Now, before you pick it up, inspect the glass and the piece behind it in the stack. Is it broken or damaged? Especially, look at the edges. Now, hang on there. One of the most common accidents in the glass industry is caused by workers like John here, trying to select a piece of glass from the back of a stack without moving the sheets in front. If you lose control of all that weight leaning against you, the results can be really serious. So let's put it all back again carefully.
Out on site, life is very different. This time, the site may be new to you. You need to walk the route you're going to use first, noting whether there are any obstacles or trip hazards. There may be children around or pets that need to be controlled before you start. And of course, it might be raining or windy or frosty. When doing a risk assessment for a replacement operation, don't forget that often the highest risk comes from removing the old glass and the old frame. Make sure you give proper thought to how you're going to dispose of it. And think about the risk to you, to your customer, to children and to pets if you don't remove every trace of the old glass. These are all hazards that form part of the risk that you need to assess and control before you handle the glass.
You know, many people get the wrong idea about personal protective equipment, or PPE. There's a feeling that so long as you're wearing the PPE, you can take a few risks. Let the PPE take care of the problem and protect you. This is a bit like wearing a seatbelt in a car and then driving recklessly because the seatbelt will protect you. You should think of the PPE as the last resort in protection. You do everything you possibly can to prevent an accident, and then you wear the PPE just in case it goes wrong. Just like that seatbelt, you don't really expect to use it.
You must protect your eyes. As we saw at the beginning of the program, eye injuries are common in this industry. Most of them would have been completely avoided if the victim had been wearing eye protection.
Your safety glasses should have side protection like this. And for some jobs, you'll need to wear goggles.
You must protect your hands. Modern industrial gloves are graded on a 5-point scale according to the degree of cut protection they afford.
For glass handling, you need at least a scale 3 glove. Of course, the glove needs to provide a good grip on the glass, and a glove that's suitable for handling dry glass in a factory may not be the right choice if you're handling glass out on a cold, wet installation site, or if you're handling glass in a wet process like arrowsing.
You must protect your wrists. We've seen how glass can cut the tendons in your forearm, leaving your hand completely useless.
It can cut main arteries too, so you must at all times protect those vulnerable wrists.
You must protect your feet. Choose from the wide range of industrial safety footwear that's commonly available.
Choose something that's comfortable and wear it all the time.
Sometimes you need to protect your head. Many workplaces have rules about head protection.
Generally, you must always protect your head if the glass you're handling is above head height. You may need to protect your ears as well with the appropriate ear protection. Machines and hand tools like angle grinders can be loud enough to cause harm, but the sound of breaking glass on its own is at a frequency that easily damages hearing. And if you're working close to it on a regular basis, then you will need to protect your ears.
Manual handling is something we all take for granted. After all, we do it every day. But if you use the wrong technique when you're lifting something, you can do yourself a serious injury. Let me explain. Let's assume that this is your spinal column. In very simple terms, you'll see that there are a series of bony vertebrae separated by these softer discs. If you put too much pressure on the discs, they can rupture and cause what's known as a slip disc. And if that ruptured disc, like this one here, presses onto a nerve in the spinal column, you can do yourself a very painful injury. So how might that be caused? Let me show you on this model here. My mate here is going to lift this weight quite incorrectly. What's wrong about it? He's got his legs straight, he's got his head down, and the weight is too far from his body. You'll see that as he begins to lift, the vertebrae here open, and that puts pressure on the discs here. Let me show you that back on this spinal column. As the vertebrae open here, pressure is put on the discs here and they can rupture. At the same time, he might be pulling these muscles here. And if at the same time you twist as well as lift, the vertebrae here can turn and then you really are in serious trouble. So how should it be done properly? Let's go back to my mate here. First of all, the weight is going to be moved closer into him. His head is up, and the lifting is going to be done using this large muscle in the legs, in the thighs. As he lifts, he's going to keep his head up, and you'll see that these vertebrae don't open. He keeps his back straight as he lifts. Okay, I hear you say. It's all very well lifting a relatively small weight like that, but how does that technique translate into lifting a piece of glass which is quite large and very fragile?
Before you lift, always make sure that you're holding the glass comfortably without twisting your body. It makes sense to grip with one hand at the bottom edge and use the other hand for support. Grip with the palms of the hands and the base of the fingers, never the tips. Hold the glass as high up as you can without overstretching. Lift in stages. First, bring the load up to the knees. Look up and keep your back straight. Let your arms and legs do the work, not your back. Now lift up to the carrying position. But again, keep looking up to keep your back straight. Don't twist your body at any point while lifting. The glass should always be kept upright and any movement should be as smooth as possible. When it comes to putting it down, the same principles apply. Keep your back straight, look up, and make sure the surface is suitable. The same technique applies if you're lifting in a team. But here you have the added complication that you need to ensure that you're all working together. The only way to do this is to have one team leader. If the sheet of glass is large, it may be necessary to use a suction pad. This will bring your arms closer together and avoid you having to bend your spine.
So Stevie, put your back into it.
When loading or unloading a vehicle, it should always be parked on solid ground, its floor level, and any glass, whether inside or mounted on external frails, secure and at a safe angle. The driver must be present while a vehicle is being loaded or offloaded. The load and its safety and the safety of the people around it are his responsibility all the time the load is on the vehicle. If it's necessary to move the vehicle during loading or offloading, any glass on the vehicle must be secured before the vehicle's moved.
Perhaps one of the hardest things to lift safely is an